There's an entire industry to help us be better leaders, better parents, eat better, exercise better, improve our mental health, and there's no industry to help us be better friends.
Simon Sinek is a visionary thinker and an unshakable optimist, and he is a multiple-time best-selling author.
If we know inherently that the most successful, happiest relationships require work, then why would we think that the most successful, happiest friendships require no work? If you look at the world with rising issues of mental health, rising issues of depression, anxiety, addiction, and in the worst cases, suicide, you very quickly discover that friendship fixes all those things. It is the ultimate.
I've, until recently, really struggled to reach out to friends. I'm someone who has always just been like, I can hold this together, until I had no choice. And that's when I saw the most amount of love I've ever seen in my life. I had never expected, because I'd never wanted to feel like a burden. So how can people feel that they can lean on their friends as much as they might a partner? How can we reduce that burden?
It is the most selfish thing you can do not to call a friend when you are in need of a friend.
I'm your host, Sarah Ann Macklin, and I'm on a mission to uncover the maze of health myths around nutrition and well-being and guide you through my 7 pillars of health. Join me on a journey of discovery and connection, and pull up a pew for a front row seat to the most exclusive health conversations of our time. Welcome to Live Well, Be Well. I've loved watching this community grow, and especially starting to meet you all in the comments section. But one thing, although our views are going up, our subscribers aren't. So I'd love for you to hit the subscribe button as a thank you if you've enjoyed any of our episodes. It allows us to bring bigger, more exciting guests and more continuous content. So if you've enjoyed it, just like a gentleman's handshake, please do subscribe. Simon, welcome to Live Well, Be Well.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here today, because we only met a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And your impromptu talk on stage was one of my most memorable.
Thank you.
Because you spoke about something that for me, in the last couple of months, has been very poignant in my life, which is friendship. And you said, why are there no books on friendship? Why do we not talk about this? And I think I came up to you afterwards and I said, I recorded part of your talk and I sent it to 10 of my best friends that have really been there for me in the last couple of months that I've really needed, and it's really shone through. So it's really poignant for me today. So I'm so glad that we're having this conversation.
Thank you.
Because in over 250 episodes in Live Well, Be Well, we've never spoke about it.
That's the point.
And it's one of the biggest things.
That's the point. You've probably talked about nutrition a lot. You've
Mental
probably
health.
talked about mental health a lot. You know, this is the point. This is the point my friend Will Gadara and I sort of came to realize, which is there's an entire industry to help us be better leaders. There's an entire industry to help us be better parents. There's an entire industry to help us eat better, exercise better, improve our mental health. And there's no industry to help us be better friends. And if you think about it, if you ask most people, are you a good friend? I think most people think they are a good friend. But then if you peel the onion just a little bit, right? Okay, would you cancel on a friend for a work meeting, or would you cancel a work meeting for a friend? Well, I'll cancel my friend. They'll understand, right? Okay, when your friend's depressed, do you try and fix them, or do you go over to their house, get into bed with them, and eat ice cream and watch movies all day and just be depressed with them so they're not alone? And as you start to go down the list, do you wish your friends happy birthday on social because you see all the other people wishing them happy birthday, or do you pick up the phone and sing them happy birthday? And as you start to go down the list, you realize, when was the last time you wrote a handwritten note to a friend to tell them how much you love them, right? And you start going down the list and you realize we're pretty bad at friendship. And we take it for granted because making friends is easy. It's kind of organic. It's sort of innate. We get along with people. We have a little bit of chemistry. We trade numbers. We hang out a little bit. And making friends happens. Even if you're introverted, you can make a friend.
Do you think that's true as you get older, though?
I think it's because there are different complications, and I think making friends when you get older. Lots of people have said that to me, which is how hard it is to make friends when you get older, and I think that is true for different reasons. But I think making friends is not the hard part. It's nursing friends and maintaining friends that is hard. And the obvious equivalent is relationships. We fall in lust. We are attracted to someone. We want to date someone. But relationships, everybody says, are work. And so if we know inherently that the most successful, happiest relationships require work, then why would we think that the most successful, happiest friendships require no work. And the reality is if you look at the world with rising issues of mental health, rising issues of depression, anxiety, addiction, and in the worst cases, suicide, if you sort of examine those things closely, you very quickly discover that friendship fixes all those things. It is the ultimate biohack. Friendship is the ultimate biohack. It helps you deal with stress better. It helps you actually become less likely to become addicted to things. It improves your health. It makes you live longer.
It does.
And we know there's a whole obsession with longevity now. And with all these people doing all these things and injecting things in their bodies, if they just spent more time, and I've talked to some of the longevity people.
So have I.
And they're very unhappy people, ironically.
Do you think Brian Johnson's happy?
I don't know him. But I know some of the others, some of the famous ones, and they're just not happy people. And there's a great irony in that. And you go to the blue zones, and I think you've had
Dan Buettner
on your show. And what you find amongst what they eat and, the walking and all that stuff, it's in community. They eat with each other. Friendship plays a large part in these blue zones. That
they have support groups.
That these healthier people have other people in their lives. So I, for one, have been a bad friend, and I am learning to be a good friend. I'm pushing my own boundaries of what I'm comfortable with in being a friend, and it is probably the best investment I've ever made. My friends make me feel safe. They make me feel loved. I am better able to manage stress and difficulty. I'm more secure in who I am. Not because I did self-work, quote unquote. It's because my friends made me feel that way. And I invested in them, and they're investing in me.
Emotional safety is such a big one that no one speaks about with friendships. We speak about it in relationships. I don't think we speak about it in friendships.
And at the end of the day, it's unfair. If you think about it's unfair to put that much pressure on a relationship that your romantic partner has to fulfill their everything and be there for everything. It's just unfair. And no one can live up to that. No partner can live up to that. But, this is why we have friends. Because if we could do everything ourselves or we only needed one other person in our lives, we wouldn't need friends. I'll give you a real life example where a partner couldn't be there for somebody. And they turned to a friend. It happened to, in this case, it was me. It was during lockdown. And I have a rule with all my friends. They all know this, which is no crying alone. It's just my rule, right? And the phone rings and it's a friend who we're close, but we don't talk that much. I'm much, much closer with her husband. And she calls me up. She goes, "I'm in a bad place." I go, "Okay." She goes, I need to talk." I go, "Okay." She says, I don't want to go to my husband because he's not in a good place either. And he doesn't have the bandwidth for me right now. I can't do that to him. And I can't keep it to myself. And so I'm calling you. And we talked and cried for about an hour. And now I still talk to her husband way more. And she and I are so close because of this hour we shared. She remembers where she was standing. I remember where I was standing. And by the way, her husband is immensely grateful that I could be there for her. When he couldn't. That's literally what friends are for. They actually make relationships better.
My number one rule is that health should be personalised and tailored to the individual. But it can be hard to do if we don't know where our current health status is. Are you someone who's been trying countless supplements and health trends but end up feeling no different? Before you even start thinking about these things, it's crucial to assess where your health status currently is. That's where OptimallyMe can make a world of difference. OptimallyMe is a health optimization platform that provides personalized health recommendations based on your unique biology and goals. It offers access to a variety of diagnostic blood tests, digital tools, and devices, helping you see the bigger picture of your health, whether it's metabolic, gut, hormone, mental, skin, or cardiovascular health. This is where your foundation of health should start, with the understanding of where it currently stands. What I love about OptimallyMe is it allows you to analyze your health biomarkers and personalize your health journey. You can start your personalized journey with the full body MOT and DNA epigenetics blood tests. These tests assess multiple areas of your health and determine how lifestyle and environment are aging your body. Once you have your comprehensive health overview, you can start to connect your wearable devices and work with expert health coaches using the OptimallyMe dashboard to support your health. And here is a little something for you. Use the code LWBW20 to get 20% off your order, because your health is personal, and so should your health plan.
But it's so sad that in those partnerships, we very rarely actually speak to our friends about it. And I think women are better than that at men. Do you see a difference in how women approach their friendships to how men approach their friendships? Because I'm thinking from a woman's perspective, and you're going to be thinking from a man's perspective.
Well, I'd love to get your point of view, because clearly my point of view is filtered through my own sort of experience, which is male. So I would love to get your point of view. I can tell you that when I talk about friendship publicly, and I've only just started talking about it publicly very recently, but when I talk about it publicly, women are grateful. They come up to me and thank me. We have a conversation about it, sometimes about the differences. Men lean in very closely, as if they have a secret they don't want anybody else to hear. And I mean, I can think of one specific one recently where somebody leaned in and said, "This is a sensitive topic." And I thought to myself, is it? You know? And he was very sort of realizing that he's a shit friend. And he literally leans into me and goes, "Thank you. This is a very sensitive topic." And men are, I think, struck a little harder by it. I think women have an easier time expressing emotion to each other. I definitely have had an easier time expressing my emotion to my female friends. I actually have very close female friendships because I can hug them in a way that I don't hug men. Or I can hold their hand in a way I don't, like I can sit on a couch and watch and hold their hand in a way that I don't do that with a guy, you know? Those things are socially not allowed, you know, in the same way. And I have a friend who, he's in the military, active duty. He's a warrior by every standard. He's risked his life to save the lives of others. He's remarkable. He's a tough human being. And remember, in the military, they have brothers and sisters. You and I have colleagues and coworkers. And so that relationship of brotherhood and sisterhood, it means something. And they call each other brother and they call each other sister. You know, it's a real thing. But they wouldn't call us that. And I remember the first time my friend called me brother, and it was just casual. It's like, "All right, brother," or "Hey, brother." And I remember the first time he said it, I was like, whoa, like I'm in that club now, right? And our friendship developed, and he's a remarkable human being. And we had a conversation, you know, it wasn't about anything particular. Neither one of us was struggling or anything. We were just catching up. And at the end of the conversation, this warrior, you know, says quite casually to me, "All right, I'll talk to you soon. I love you." Not love ya, not love you, but I love you. And I remember feeling struck by that. It's a lot to take in. And I said, "I love you back." And every time he and I talk now, when we get off the phone, we say, "I love you." And I was so moved by it, I started experimenting with some of the friends that I have that kind of love for. And I'm thinking of two in particular who I would describe as wonderful human beings, but no one would ever describe them as warm. Distant, a little bit cold, hard to read. Good people, but they're not warm. And I did this with both of them. When I saw them, I was like leaving one of them, I remember I was leaving his house. I was like, "All right, I'll talk to you soon. I love you." And I remember watching him
flinch.
And he sort of said, "I love you back." He said it back almost immediately. And the other one, the first time I said it to him, he didn't know how to react. But I kept doing it. Every time I saw him, I'd like, "All right, I love you." And eventually he said it back. But more important, when I would say goodbye to them, we hugged in a way that we never hugged like that before. And just me taking the risk to say that to them had such a profound impact on us, on our ability to express the love that we actually had for each other. And just by expressing it, by taking the risk to express the way I actually felt, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that our friendships are closer and here's a funny word to use, clearer. Clearer. You know, have you ever had a crush on someone, but you're sort of too nervous to say anything or act on it? And you hang out and you giggle and you have fun and you keep going out in this friendship and there's this kind of tension. Neither of you acts on it. And then you meet somebody else or they meet somebody else and they start dating. This happened to me. And they start dating somebody or you start dating somebody. And then at some point you're hanging out with this person who's your friend. And for whatever reason, it leaks out that you had a crush on them. And they say, I had a crush on you. And you're like, well, why the hell didn't you say, well, why didn't you? And like, you had such intense love for each other, but you were so nervous. So the reason I'm using that as an example is there was a lack of clarity. There was
and vulnerability.
There was a lack of clarity, there was a lack of vulnerability, there was a distance, there was a tension, even if it was good. And you never could take any kind of step to take this relationship to a next level. Whether it succeeded or failed is irrelevant. You never, and we do that in friendship. We don't allow the friendships to flourish. We water them to a degree. And then we keep them stunted because we leave the pot's too small. And so it'll grow and it's beautiful and it's lovely and I love hanging out with them and look how pretty they are. But it'll never flower. Or if it does flower, you get a flower. You won't get a bouquet. And that's what this is. It's magical and mystical and human and beautiful and restorative.
Do you think there's a degree of rejection of why we're scared to get to that next level with friendships? Like, I'm trying to think, like, what is it that is stopping us becoming more open and vulnerable with our friends? What is that block? I
don't think it's any different from the risks we have to take in emotional romantic relationships. It's fear of rejection. It's fear that the other person doesn't feel the same way. It feels vulnerable to say I love you to somebody and no idea if they're going to say it back or how they're going to receive it. Again, the analogy is clear. Like, we know all these things in our romantic relationships. It's all analogous. Sure, fear is a part of it. Or maybe some of us feel like those words are reserved for romance.
I think for men it is. I think for women it's less.
I think that might be true. And I understand different cultures have different words and all of that stuff, but we are limited, right? We have I love you, and that's supposed to mean I'm not in love with you, I just love you. Like we say that. I don't love you, I just love you. Like we don't even have new words. We just have to sort of temper the words with accents in the right places. And then I'm in love with you, which is different than I love you, but I say I love you when I'm in love with you. So yeah, I think I think language gets in the way as well.
Hugely. For me, you said that you were a bad friend at some point, but now you have been
still a bad friend to some people.
But now you're working really hard to be a good friend. So I want to define, what do you feel is a bad friend? What do you feel was a good friend? And why now do you have such an inherent focus on friendships?
That's a great question. Let's answer the second question first, because that's a difficult question. Why now? Why now? I think whether it's age or career or just, I don't know what it is, so all of my work is semi-autobiographical, right? If you read my work in order, it's kind of my journey, right? And
starting with why,
right. And I don't write things or like make a point of talking about things publicly unless I'm obsessed with something. And I usually only become obsessed with something when it is in some way, shape, or form contributing to the journey that I'm on, making me better, making those around me better, teaching me something I didn't know, you know? And I'm not very different than most people. I stumble through life. I don't have a plan, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I stumble through life, but when things get, and along the way, I try and keep my eyes open and learn as much as I can. You know, I consider myself a student in everything I do, even my own discipline. I'm not an expert in anything, just a student. I might be a more advanced student in some things, but I'm still a student. And I think that I had a few experiences over the past few years that where people were there for me in a way that I needed, hadn't had before. Just some realizations when I was just sort of in a quiet moment, really honest with myself, that I maintain friendships with people that are nice. I have fun with them. They're good people. Do I trust them deeply with my secrets, with my true self, with my vulnerability, with my fears, with my anxieties? Nah. And by the way, that's fine. Not every friend has to be a deep, intense relationship. You can have mates that are just fun, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But I think I overused the term friend. I even overused the term good friend because I hung out with somebody a lot. But I also realized that if I was really harsh and honest with myself, that I was a lazy friend. So I spent a lot of time with people who I enjoyed their company, but I didn't have to put in much work. It was convenient. You know, I was lazy.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't look down upon those relationships. I think some of those relationships are actually kind of important to have what I would call lazy friends, right? But I was confusing those for good friends. And then there was a couple periods where I needed somebody to be there for me. And I realized I had this list of people that I spent all this time with, and I wanted to call none of them. And I was like, that's not good, you know? And the very small handful of people that I did want to call in those times were always the same people. And I realized that's not good either, to rely on one or two people that can't always be there for me. They have families, like they got other things, like, you know, they're good to me and they'll be there for me, but I just felt it was unfair to them and to me, you know, to have one friend on speed dial. I'm also very lucky that I have an incredible sister who's the best friend anybody could ever have. So like I said, it's the analogies to relationships. You know, you look at people in happy relationships and you're like, I want that. And it's not easy. They do the work. And you look at the way they communicate and the way they interact and the way they give each other space and the way they know each other. And I want that in my relationships. But then I started looking at friendships and I saw people who had friends and I'm like, I want that. And here's the best part. It's available. It's available. Just like most things in life, if you're willing to do a little bit of work, you know, if you're willing to do a little bit of work, you can have muscles. If you're willing to do a little bit of work, you can make your body in better shape. If you're willing to do a little bit of work, you can sleep better. If you're willing to do a little bit of work, you can have the kinds of friends that make you the best version of yourself.
I want to share something that's helped my skincare routine, the Bon Charge Red Light Face Mask. Red light therapy is fantastic for your skin because it helps reduce inflammation and increases collagen production, making your skin look healthier and more youthful. The Bon Charge Red Light Face Mask uses the optimal wavelengths of red 630 nanometers and infrared 850 nanometers light to deliver these benefits. Now, someone in my early 30s, wrinkles aren't a huge issue yet, but the minor lines I did have are already smoothed out. And what really surprised me was how well this mask works for acne. It helps settle the acne quicker and reduces any dark spots afterwards. It's been a real game changer for those unexpected breakouts. Now, prevention is key for me, and using this mask is a great step to help reduce the signs of aging. It's also become vital in my self-care routine. And during this time, I incorporate the meditation practice, making it one of my favorite times of the day. So if you're curious about how red light therapy can help your skin, I highly recommend giving it a try. go to boncharge.com/livewell and use the code LIVEWELL for 15% off your order.
Well, I heard last night when you invited me to run But, and is it Helen that came up to speak?
Helen Shute, yeah.
And
we should tell people what we're talking about. So,
well, yeah. Well, I was going to ask you to explain the full story, but the thing that she said, and I want you to explain about what happened, is she stood up after this incredible performance that we watched and said, look, Simon called me to ask me how I was. But the thing with Simon and being his friend is that I can't lie. And that word stuck out to me so much, because we all have those friends when they call you and you speak and they're not really that interested and they kind of glaze over and they kind of, want to know but don't really want to know. But it made me feel the moment that she said that you really want to know if someone's okay and they've got to be truthful. And that's such a deep basis for a relationship. And I don't know if you've ever reflected on that, but I think that's such an amazing quality to have in a friend. It doesn't matter what that person's about to say, because some people also find it quite heavy to take on someone else's problem in that moment. And she said, I couldn't lie. Like, he wouldn't let me lie. And anyone who is Simon's friend will say the same thing.
Yeah, her words were very kind. I didn't expect her to say any of them, and I didn't know any of those things when she said them.
But what an amazing friend exercise in itself.
I think it's a good... a friend of mine says, he's a retired Marine Corps general, and he says his test for leadership is if you ask someone how they're doing, you actually care about the answer. And I think that's probably a good test of friendship too. Like, if you ask somebody how they are, you actually care about the answer. We all do it politely. How are you? And everybody knows we don't really care.
Yeah, we don't. We just say we're fine.
And we say we're fine. And by the way, they're fine with that, and we're fine with that, because I don't really want to know. Just being polite. Just as an aside, I met somebody once for the first time, and like, I just met him, and we were at dinner, and I said, how are you? He goes, it's been a rough year. I got divorced, and I've been fighting with the ex, and I'm trying to, and I'm literally sitting there going, I didn't really want to know the
life story.
I don't actually want to know the answer. And he literally, and I was sitting there going, oh, I'm in this.
He's like, you're the guy that loves friendships.
I'm like, okay, let's batter up. I guess it's my fault. I did ask.
But tell me about last night. Tell me about,
okay,
tell the audience, not me, because I was there, obviously. But I would like you to explain it, because...
What happened? How it got there? How it existed?
Exactly. And what you did and the freedom that you gave by that call, which afterwards we're going to talk about the 8-minute rule as well, which I kind of feel is in context with this call.
So I'm a huge lover of the arts, and I love dance, and I love modern dance. And Rambert, Rambert, is one of my favorite dance companies in the world. I don't remember how I met them, but I've had a relationship with them for a while, and I'll support them. I'll look at their marketing, and I'll give them some ideas, and I try and give where I can give. And I called Helen, who's the executive director, CEO, I don't know what they call themselves, and I said, how are you? And she'd had a tough year, and a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of pressure, and she needed to reset the company. I mean, this is sort of what she said.
Yes, she did.
I don't remember, to be honest, what she said on the phone call. It was, well over a year ago. And I said, well, how can I help? And they needed to do something new. They needed to do something different. So I said, well, why don't we raise some money so you can do that? And so I said, I don't do a lot of speaking anymore. I don't do much anymore, but why don't we get a venue, and I'll do a gig just for you, and we'll give all the money to the dance company. 100% of the box office we'll give to you guys. I said, and so I invited Stephen Bartlett to come and have a conversation with me on the stage. And when we announced that we were going to be doing one night at the Royal Festival Hall, we sold out in about half an hour, 45 minutes, and I think we had like 12,000 people on the waiting list or something ridiculous. I mean, it literally crashed their ticket system. It actually crashed the Royal Festival Hall ticket. They've never had it's an arts organization. And, we attracted people we didn't say, come give to charity. We just did a thing. And Rambert choreographed a piece for the beginning and the end of the event. So we had a little bookend, which was really fun for me. And at the end of the gig, I stood up and said to the audience, now let me tell you what you're a part of. All of the ticket sales are going to Rambert for them to go make a piece of art with. And everybody in this room just commissioned a piece of dance. And they applauded these are not dance people. And they applauded with such excitement. It was amazing. It was one of the best applause we got, that announcement that their tickets went to a good cause. And a year later, the piece was commissioned, or came out rather, and they were all invited back to come and see the piece that they made. What I didn't know, and so I unfortunately was unable to make the performance, which was a few months ago. I wasn't able to be in the UK to see the performance that I helped bring to life, and so they were going to perform it for me in the studio just so I could see what was made. And then I got a call from Helen and said, "Give me some dates, and we're going to do something different." And they got the venue, and they redid the whole thing with costumes and lighting in the actual venue, and they said, "Invite your friends. It's going to be a private performance just for our family of Rambert." And so I invited a bunch of friends, present company included, and we went and watched our own performance of this magical, magical piece called Analog by Jill Johnson. And at the end, Helen stood up and said some very kind words, which I didn't expect, where she said that this piece reset the whole company and gave them a freedom that they'd never had. Because usually when people give large amounts of money and make commissions, it always comes with strings. In the arts, everybody wants something, and I said nothing. I said, I'm going to do the gig, and you walk away with the money. Do what the hell you want with it. Just make magic, And they did, and apparently they needed it more than I realized. So it was, all the dancers came up to me afterwards and were so grateful to have gone through the process that they went through to make that piece. It was a really special piece.
For someone who's talking about friendships so much. And it was the most perfect time for our conversation, because she was like, Simon is a great friend for these reasons.
Yeah, I hate it.
But the power of it,
if you want to know honestly.
How can people do that in their own lives? I mean, obviously that was kind of something so large that happened and so life-changing for them. But just having, if we weren't in that room, you two just having that conversation, that's really powerful to understand what you're giving to one another and why you're in that friendship, which none of us ever do. So I'm trying to think about evaluating our friendships. What kind of things can we take? What questions should we be asking ourselves or to one another to deepen our friendships? Because that must have deepened a friendship between you and her last night when you heard that. Well,
I would rather have that conversation in private. I do not like when people say those things to me in public. I hate it.
It was great timing for me, so I'm really glad that she did that.
Yeah, it's good, nice for you. And I sort of, there's a side of me that's a little embarrassed. There's also a side of me that doesn't believe it. I don't believe in taking, I think it's more them than me. I was a piece of a puzzle, and you can't celebrate one piece of a whole puzzle,
But I think that's the point of friendships, that it's
look,
about
I'm very
doing
grateful. Don't get
something
me wrong.
together, right?
I'm very grateful for the very kind words. Don't get me wrong. But I'm I kind of have a Groucho Marx view on the world. Groucho Marx said I would never join a club that would have me as a member. But so I always think when people say nice things to me, I take it with a grain of salt.
But you're someone who is literally talking about the importance of friendships and deepening them. And I think to give people an exercise to try and deepen their friendships, that's kind of an amazing exercise. What are the things that they value about each other as a friend, and why? I was trying to think about that today as I was seeing some friends tonight.
I think it's important that we tell our friends why we're friends with them, and
But how often does anyone do that?
I have friendships where the thing that I like about good friendships is that the friendship is one of the topics of the conversation, of topics of when we get together. So some of my closest friends, we actually spent, we'll talk about politics, or we'll talk about the arts, or we'll talk about something silly, or we'll talk about, we'll joke around, or we'll talk about whatever we're talking about, work, and at some point, invariably, we will talk about our friendship. That's actually what we talk about. And I've said the same thing to some of my friends over and over and over again, and it never gets tiring, which is why I love them and why I want to be their friend. I think it's very important to tell our friends why we are friends with them, because we have choices, no one's forcing us to be friends with anybody. So I do think it's important. And And not because we want to hear it, because it's important for them to hear it. You know, telling a friend how much you care about them is an act of service. It's an act of love. I don't think many people realize how good they are. And for us to tell them, I think, means that they'll do more of it. I think when somebody tells you that you're that kind of person, whether you believe it or not, it kind of makes you want to live up to the standard that they're setting, even if it's uncomfortable to hear, and even though may have some embarrassment or false humility that goes with it. I think whether you believe it or not, or whether you agree with it or not, it sets a high bar to now live up to that every day. You know? Like if I said to you, you know, the thing I like about you as a friend is that you have no judgment and you make somebody feel like they can be their true selves. Now you have to go through every day of your life living up to that. You know? I like that. I like that. And, you know, so when Helen said that to me, whether I agree with it or not is irrelevant. What it does do is it means like, oh shit, like I have to be that now. And that's a good thing.
That is it's a mirroring, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
I'm so pleased to partner with Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to help entrepreneurs stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage your audience, and sell anything from products to content all in one place. I've been using Squarespace since day one because it's accessible and it looks professional, even for a tech phobe like me. Squarespace gives you all the tools to create and sell your own online courses. I launched my own Inner Circle membership last year using their platform. You can upload videos, customize your layouts, and add a paywall to monetize your content. Now, if you're looking to grow your business, the email campaigns feature is a game changer. It allows you to create targeted email campaigns, engage your community, drive sales, and track success with built-in analytics. Head to squarespace.com/livewell for your free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code LIVEWELL for 10% off a website or domain.
So something that happened to me, which I'm thinking about as you're talking about this, I've until recently really struggled to reach out to friends. I'm someone who has always just been like, I can hold this together. I don't need to.
Or I don't want to bother them.
Yeah, I don't want to burden people.
Yeah.
Until I had to. Until I had no choice. And that's when I saw the most amount of love I've ever seen in my life in that time, which for me, I don't want to say surprised me because I know I have amazing people in my life, but I had never expected because I'd never wanted to feel like a burden. And I think parts of my friends had also known that about me. And one said, I'm going to call you every day at 10, every single day. You don't have to answer. This person also doesn't live in this country. And you don't have to pick up, but I'm just going to call you every single day. And that released any pressure of me even needing to reach out when I didn't feel strong enough to kind of have any emotional capacity to think about that. And it really made me think about the importance of leaning on our friends in times when we need to, but how to allow us to not have to get to such extreme moments to feel that we need to do that. So how can people feel that they can lean on their friends as much as they might a partner? How can we reduce that burden?
Well, let's be very blunt. It is the most selfish thing you can do not to call a friend when you are in need of a friend. It is the most selfish thing you can do. How you're so magnanimous as to not allow someone to be there for you, you selfish bastard. Because one of the greatest joys of being a friend is to be there for our friends when they need someone to be there for them. It feels incredible. It's not always fun, but it feels so rewarding. It is more rewarding for me to be there for you in a time of need than for you to be there for me. And so how dare you deny your friends the honor of being your friend? It is so insanely selfish. And so I tell my friends, if you love me, you damn well call me. You know?
But why are we not taught that? All of us don't grow up with that thought process. I definitely did not grow up with that thought process.
I mean, insecurity, excessive politeness, embarrassment. I think embarrassment's a big one. I think this one goes back to men as well, right? Especially shame a little bit maybe, but I choose the word embarrassment because, high-performing people are A-type personalities never want to show that they can't. It's very embarrassing to say I fucked up, or I'm struggling, or I'm stuck. And I think our egos get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we don't call. I've definitely been guilty of it, where I haven't called friends who I know love me because I'm just embarrassed, because I know they look up to me, and I know that they see me a certain way, and I don't want to dirty that image they have of me. But I realize that's my issue, and I realize that it's selfish, and I realize that my friendships can never progress beyond a point unless I'm willing to be let them be a friend to me in my good times and my bad times. And it turns out that when I took the risk to reach out and say, I just need to talk to somebody, that they were more likely to call me, which gives me the honor of getting to be their friend. And that's what it's all about. We don't build trust by offering help. We build trust by asking for it.
What if trust is broken? A lot of questions came in on this today, by the way. Oh, literally the number one question that came in today, we were flooded with questions, was when trust is broken.
Yeah. So we are all human. We are all selfish. We are all sometimes short-term focused. And we're all idiots. And we have all broken trust. Now, breaking trust and betrayal are different things, right? And I think in all cases, whether it's broken trust or betrayal, with all of the emotions and anger and all of that, is the opportunity for communication. More importantly, listening. And I know that sounds ironic. If I'm the one who's betrayed, or if I'm the one who feels like trust was broken, you need to listen to me. But the irony is you actually need to offer a safe space for them to feel heard before they'll ever accept responsibility or accountability. It's very hard to say, I'm sorry, I screwed up, when you're being attacked or backed into a corner or told you're bad. And many of us, my own self included, I can jump too many stages ahead. Like if I've done something if somebody's hurt, whether they perceive that I did it or not, the minute they say, I'm hurt, I feel shame that I did something to hurt somebody. And I become very defensive because it's my shame that I hurt somebody, because the last thing I want to do is hurt somebody I care about. And so I start getting defensive before they've accused me of anything. They just told me they were hurt, right? We're bad at explaining when we're hurt. How about you're a liar versus you lied to me? You lied to me is an action that we can talk about. You're a liar is I'm assessing your character, right? And if you want to have a difficult conversation, go after the behavior, not the person. Because if you want to see somebody get defensive real quick, then attack the person versus attacking the behavior, right? But I think the times that I have felt that trust was broken, I have learned to explain how I felt, what they did that made me feel that way, and then I have learned to be quiet and let them talk, whether they're defensive or whether they're apologetic. And I let them, it's very, 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 very hard. And if they get defensive, to try not to interrupt them. If they say things that are hurtful to me, and I've done this. I went through this recently where somebody was saying things to me that were really hurtful, and I don't think they were true. They were actually, and so I kept wanting to correct them. I kept wanting to say, well, that's not entirely true. So if you're going to say that about me, get your facts right, And by the way, I never did that. Or my favorite one, which I didn't intend it. I would never do that on purpose. And I literally, my constant interruptions were destroying any opportunity for communication. And so literally what I said to myself in my mind, and I feel shame, I feel attacked, I feel wronged, I feel defensive, I feel clearly this person knows I wouldn't do this, And in all of that, I literally I sort of went away for a second and said to myself, this is their story. It doesn't matter if their story is true or false. It's their story. And your only job in this moment is to listen to their story. That's it. And so I sat there, and when things were hurtful, when they were spears, and some of it was very aggressive, I literally would catch myself and say, just their story, just keep listening. Don't interrupt, just it's their story, just listen to their story. Care about their story. And I went through this process of listening to their story, and at the end, they felt heard. And in the moment they felt heard, and I was quiet, they said, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for hearing this. And then started backpedaling and saying to me, you know what, maybe I'm being oversensitive. I know you would never intend to do that. And, and I didn't say anything. They just need to get it out. And then they can assess. They need to get all the emotions out before you can be rational. And this is the mistake we make so often, which is when we are trying to have conversations with somebody and one of us is emotional, hurt, angry, whatever it is, we try and use facts to meet emotions, right? And so, for example, I feel angry because of what you said or did, and the answer is, I'll tell you a true one. I said to somebody, you did this 6 times this week, and it's driving me nuts. And they said back, well, I did it 5 times. I'm like, it doesn't matter how many times you did it. I'm telling you that it hurts. And they said, well, if you're going to tell me that you're hurt and that I did something to you, get your facts right. And the point is, the facts don't matter. I'm in an emotional state, and literally the facts are irrelevant. And so you never bring facts to an emotional conversation. There's no quicker way to make somebody feel unheard. Because all we're doing in an emotional conversation is allowing someone to tell their story and validate their feelings, not correct the facts. Because when we correct the facts, basically what we're saying to them is, you're wrong, your feelings don't matter, and I'm not listening to you. And so that you can never progress.
So approach it with feelings.
So feelings have to be met with space. So it doesn't matter if you're emotional or not. You have to create space for feelings to exist, right? And we have a thing that we say at work, which is true all the time, which is, if it's above a 5, it's about something else. So if somebody screams at you, stop leaving the fridge open, it's not about the fridge. And if you start talking about the fridge, like, what's the big deal? I just kept the fridge open for 3 seconds. Like, who cares? The dinging. So what? You're wasting electricity. What difference does it make? It's like, it's 1 second of electricity. Like, it's fine. We're not going to burn down the planet. Like, I'm meeting emotion with facts.
Yeah.
It's going to go nowhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if it's above a 5, like, clearly somebody's being yelling at me for the fridge. This is not about the fridge.
There's something else going on.
And then you go, what's up? Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. Isn't it clearly? So the only job is to create space. It's hard to do. The way I will talk about this makes it all sound so easy.
When you're in it.
None of this is easy, especially if you're triggered, if you're angry, or if you're the one who brings your emotions and they start with their emotions. Oh my God, now who gets, I went first, It's difficult. People are messy. Relationships are messy.
They are messy.
But
what if someone says everything they say? How do you then approach it if you still don't agree? How do you have that difficult conversation?
So difficult conversations, there's a good system to have a difficult conversation. And the way I like to do it is I ask permission, right? Because I never want to spring it on someone. I never want them to feel ambushed. I never want them to not have agency and control in what we're about to do, which is not going to be fun. That's like pushing someone in the pool, just like surprising someone, pushing in the pool versus saying, the water's cold, let's get in slowly. Like in both cases, you're getting in a cold pool, and one of them you can do it at your pace, and one of them is really annoying, right? So you can't push a friend in a pool of cold water.
No, you're going to go in gently.
You have to go in gently, and you have to say what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is I say, I need to have an uncomfortable conversation with you. Can we do it now? And they can say, yeah. Or they can say, can you give me a minute? Or they can say, I can't do this now. Can we do it tomorrow? And you say, yeah. But I need to have this uncomfortable conversation with you. I need to have a hard conversation with you. And so now they have agency. So if it starts to get heated, you didn't spring it on them. They can't be defensive. So if they start to be like, look, I told you we needed to do this. And you said yes. So now they're a volunteer in this discomfort. So that's very important. Giving someone agency as to whether they're ready to have that conversation or not. Because now they're a partner in this conversation rather than defensive in this conversation, right? So that's number one. And then there's a great system to use. It doesn't work all the time, but it works pretty well a lot of the time. And it's called FBI, feelings, behavior, impact. The order actually doesn't matter, whether it's FBI or BIF or it's easy to remember FBI. But what you have to do is and again, the order doesn't matter, but you have to do all three. You have to tell somebody how you feel specifically. You have to do better than happy, sad, angry, right? Specifically how you feel, the behavior that they did, the specific behavior that they did that made you feel that way, and you pick the worst one or the most recent one. But you can never say, you always do this, because they'll tell you the one time they didn't. Right? You always interrupt me. No, I don't. Well, they don't always interrupt you. That's true. But yesterday when we were with your parents and I was trying to tell them a story and you interrupted me, it made me feel so unseen, so lesser than. And my fear is that every time I'm talking to other people, if you continue to interrupt me, I will completely disengage from this relationship. FBI. Here's the feeling. Here's the behavior that created that feeling. Here's the impact of the feeling if that behavior doesn't change. And then you shut up. And that's the hard part, which is we want to keep talking and bashing them over the head. You've told them, you've made it specific, you've pointed to the behavior, not the person, and you allow them to do their thing. And if they start getting defensive, you can let them get it out, say more, go on, what else? You become an active listener. If they turn it around and say, well, when on Friday, when I was talking to your parents and you interrupted me, and you say, I'm absolutely happy to talk to you about that if it hurt your feelings. But right now, we're talking about this. Right now, we're talking about, I want to do that.
Back.
We'll talk about that if you want. I absolutely think it's important. But right now, this is the thing we're talking about. Let's talk about this. And by the way, if it gets so heated that the person cannot, they attack, deny, or if you're not in the space to listen, because you're getting triggered and you start getting defensive and interrupting them, like if it's just not working, totally fine to disengage. Like, listen, this is going nowhere. I'll tell you a really funny one. I was having an argument with someone, and the argument went something like this. These are all the things that I did right, and these are all the things you did wrong. And the response was, well, these are the things that I did right, and these are the things that you did wrong. And then I said, well, this is what I did that was right, and this is the thing that you did that was wrong. And their response was, well, I'll tell you something I did right and something you did wrong. Clearly, this is going nowhere.
How long did this go on for?
More than it should have. And it got heated, and we started raising voices and started to get a little bit personal. Not good.
Mm-mm.
And thank goodness I had the wherewithal in the middle of that argument to say out loud in a very calm voice that this is going nowhere. This will resolve nothing. And so I would like to introduce new rules for this fight, please. And here's the new rule. I will tell you what I did wrong, and I will tell you what you did right. And then you will do the same, and I will go first. And I said, well, here's something you did that was perfect, and here's where I screwed it up. And they said, yeah, well, here's what I did that was wrong, and here's what you did that was right. I said, yeah, I got you on this one. I did this thing that was so bad and so mean, and you were so graceful in how you did this. In 5 minutes, we were hugging each other and everything was good. Because what we realized is we were both trying. What we realized is we were both trying. And in that moment of anger, all we could see was what the other person was doing wrong and could give them no credit for what they were doing right. And we put ourselves on pedestals like we're the perfect friend. And in that moment, by changing the rules, you're like, shit, I could do better. And boy, I am lucky to have this person. And you just open the aperture.
There's those moments when you feel that you're really lucky to have these people in your life, when those moments happen. But have you ever had to have an uncomfortable conversation to end a friendship? Because that's something that no one talks about.
Yeah.
And we outgrow friendships.
Yeah. Look, nobody is offended by the fact that you will date somebody. And even if they're a wonderful person, they're just not your person. Or maybe trust was violated. Or there's many reasons why relationships fail, But sometimes, I don't understand why we get so angry at the people we used to date, because they were good people when we dated them, and it didn't work,
Majority of the time.
Yeah. Yes. If they were lying and hiding, sure. Yes. Fair point. But I guess the point I'm getting at is we are totally okay with the fact that relationships end. Oh, I dated this person for 3 months. Oh, I dated this person for 3 years, and it hurt. But onwards and upwards, right? Like friendships end as well. Sometimes we outgrow friends. Sometimes we're in a growth path that they're not on. Sometimes friendships can be the definition or the parameters of that friendship can also change. Somebody can go from being one of those close friends to one of those lazy friends. We hang out. And the one thing I don't understand is when we seem to put on a pedestal the friendships that are old.
That you've been friends for a very, very long time.
But there's nothing else there but time. And if time is the only bond, that you don't really rely on the person, you get along with them great. You've been through a lot with them over the years. They've been there for you. You've been there for them. But other than time, you don't really have much in common anymore. It's okay.
But have you ever had to break up with a friend? Yeah. And how have you done that? Have you literally broken up with a friend how you would break up in a relationship? Because obviously with the relationships, there's a clear beginning and there's a very clear end most of the time. In friendships, I don't think there is. And sometimes it can get very murky, or people can feel a burden to think, okay, I've got to keep this friendship going.
Yeah. So the conversation...
Not clear-cut.
Yeah. So sometimes friendships do just peter out. I mean, that does happen. Unlike relationships where you have to kind of end them. Look, you kind of have to. Sometimes friendships just peter out. You just sort of stop calling each other and nobody's really bothered, and you just go on and live your new lives and nobody's really upset or offended. And if one of you is, then maybe have that phone call. But I've had conversations where I've said to friends, I need to have a difficult conversation with you. I came to a realization that I invest more energy in this friendship than you do. And I have this fear. If I make the plans, you'll always be there. If I call you, you'll always pick up. If I text you, you'll always text me back. But I realize that if I don't text you, you probably wouldn't text me. If I don't call you, I don't think you'd call me. And if I didn't make plans, I'm not sure you'd make plans. And I'm just realizing I don't know if that feels good anymore. And I just wanted to tell you, this is how I feel. And I love you. I think you're great. And I'm just telling you because if you want this friendship to continue, can you please invest something? Because I'm exhausted. I can't do it all. And I've had one friend step it up and I had one friend disappear. And maybe they were humiliated or shamed by the conversation, but those are their demons, not mine. And I wasn't mean about it. I was matter of fact about it. But I also think that, again, it's okay to have different kinds of friendships. And I think it's okay to set expectations with friends. So for example, you talked about the 8 minutes.
We really should talk about the 8 minutes because you told me that in Sweden and it really stuck with me.
So I'll tell it's a quick thing to tell, and then I'll tell you I'll come back to what I was going to say. So I was at a friend of mine's house for dinner, one of my best friends. And we were just catching up and haven't talked to her in a couple weeks. And she told me how her last week was really taxing and difficult. and she's fine now. She's good, but like it was really, really a rough week. And I got kind of mad. You know, we're supposed to be these close friends who rely on each other and talk to each other. And I sort of got kind of upset. And I said, well, why didn't you call me? How dare you deny me the honor, right?
Well, this is what one of my friends said to me when I was going through what I was going through a couple of months ago, and I didn't call her, and we went for dinner, and she asked me, how are you? And I told her, and the anger was like, how long has this happened?
Yeah.
When did this happen?
By the way, if your friend got
me?
angry, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, right? And the fact that they're making it about themselves, not really. It's a good thing. So anyway, I got really kind of pissed off. And I was like, why didn't you call me? Like, we're supposed to be close friends. You tell me we're such good friends all the time, and like you don't call me in the time of need? And she said, I did. I'm like, you did not. She goes, I texted you multiple times. I'm like, you absolutely didn't. Pull out my phone. I start scrolling through last week's text from her. And it says, what are you up to? Hey, want to get dinner? I'm like, you mean these texts? She goes, yeah. I'm like, how do I know that's a call for help? It sounds like every other text you've ever sent me. Because I didn't reply immediately to, hey. Like, how do I know that that's a call for help? And she told me that she read this article where if we can give somebody who's in a place of struggle or difficulty, if we can give them simply 8 minutes, we don't have to be there like for an hour or solve their problems, but if we can be there for them for 8 minutes, that time allows them to feel not alone, and that we can revisit and come back later with more time, obviously. But all we need to do is give someone 8 minutes. So my friend and I came up with this code word, which is if you're calling for help and it's different from every other time, the text is, do you have 8 minutes? And do you have 8 minutes means this is
serious.
This is game time. Hopefully you don't get them very often, right? And anyone can step out of a meeting for 8 minutes. And you don't have to be there for the exhaustive download. You have 8 minutes. Yes. I just need to tell you what I'm going through. I hear you. I love you. I love you. I love you. You're not alone. You're not alone. I'll call you. I'll call you later tonight. Okay? I love you. You're not alone. Don't worry. We'll get through this together. Is all it really requires for somebody to be okay, or to hold on. And so to go back to how friendships change, when I started talking about this 8-minute rule publicly, like I had friends texting me, like, do you have 8 minutes? Like too many friends, right? And some of them I'm like, nah, like I like you. We hang out. You're not an 8-minute friend for me, And I wrote back to one of them, I think I called because I thought it was insensitive to, but I called and said, hey, listen, you're going through something. You should call one of your better friends. I adore you. You're great. We hang out, but we're not we don't have that kind of friendship, because it would be emotionally taxing for me to give that amount of energy for someone. I'm not a therapist. It's not my job to be there for everyone in their time of need, and I think that's where some people make the mistake that they feel like they have to martyr themselves. Like that they are the ones that have to be there for everybody. You'll have nothing left for the people you really care about, and you'll definitely have nothing left for yourself.
Well, that's the big part, right?
And so this is why I think friendships have to have boundaries. Some have none, and some have some. And I think one of the things that we owe it to people. And by the way, the weird thing is none of them were upset because they all know. Everybody knows this is not the deepest friendship in the world. And just because you asked me for 8 minutes, doesn't mean I have to be there.
Yeah, totally.
It's not cold. It's realistic. And by the way, you should go and ask somebody who loves you to death and who knows you inside and out and will give up their night to come and sit in bed with you and be depressed with you and get in the mud with you. They're the
people, right?
Don't deny them the honor of being your friend. Why would you call me? There's no honor in this for me. It's literally feels like charity. Like go talk or therapy.
Yeah.
So go like, and I don't know why, but maybe there's embarrassment. I don't know what it is, but that.
Or maybe they don't have friends. I know that sounds really left bar there, but I actually think some people might struggle to think, well, do I have enough friends on my hand to call?
And
Who
I think,
are they?
And I think then I've had this conversation with people. And by the way, I've been there. And start with one. Start with somebody who, kind of makes you feel good, kind of makes you feel alive. When you leave them, you're in a good mood. Like, good friends make you feel good when you leave them. Good friends leave you feeling inspired. They leave you feeling confident. They leave you feel like when I hang out with my close friends, like, I don't care what we're talking about. It could be easy. It could be difficult. It could be funny. It could be sad. I literally, the conversation matters zero. It could be personal. It could be impersonal. It could be emotional. It could be factual. It doesn't matter. When I leave, like, I'm on a high. I feel better about myself. I feel like
You feel you.
I feel me, and I want to feel like that as much as possible. And so, in relationships, have you met people who, they keep their walls a mile high and a foot thick?
Absolutely.
And the reason they do is they say, well, I don't want to get hurt.
It's most English people.
Yeah, probably. The rationale is I don't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
And the uncomfortable truth is, if you're not willing to get hurt, if you're not open to being hurt,
you will never know what it feels
you will
like.
never know, you will never be loved, and you will never fall in love. And that's part of the risk. And is it better to never be hurt and never fall in love? Or is it better to have loved and lost? Or to put yourself out there only to be slightly embarrassed or humiliated? And the good news is wounds heal. But when we build walls around ourselves, we're creating prisons. When you build a wall around yourself for fear of being hurt, you're actually not protecting yourself from the outside. That's actually not what's happening. What you're doing is disallowing magic to come in. And you build a prison around yourself, and you are now alone. And loneliness is the single most dangerous thing that can happen
killer.
To a social animal like a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Solitary confinement is considered a form of torture. And it's selfish because you deny other people the honor of being your friend. And so there is some accountability. If you have no friends, which may be true, my question would be, are you a friend to anyone? And here's how you solve that problem. Because it's too difficult, especially if you're unpracticed in being a friend, right? Because it does take practice. It's work. Service is always the answer. So Alcoholics Anonymous has a 12-step program, and they know from years and years and years, decades of doing this, that most of us have heard of the first step, admitting you have a problem. Maybe it's me. And the Alcoholics Anonymous knows, or any 12-step program knows, that if you master 11 steps, but not the 12th, you're probably going to succumb to the disease. But if you master the 12th step, you're more likely to beat the disease. The 12th step is to help another alcoholic. Service. And so if you're struggling with something, don't try and fix it. Help somebody who's struggling with the same thing. So if you're struggling to make friends, help someone else make a friend. It is the most rewarding thing in the world.
Do you know what? I couldn't agree with you more. And I did that I told you part of my story last night.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go through it all on here now. But when I was at my lowest and I suffered, I built a not-for-profit, a charitable organization for mental health.
Yeah. To help other
for
people.
Thousands and thousands of people. Unbeknown to me, that grew my own self-worth, grew a community, grew a purpose. From my own pain, I didn't want anyone else to go through the same thing.
Yeah.
But actually, weirdly, I now say it was the most selfish thing I ever did.
Yeah.
Because it gave me everything I needed without knowing I was doing that at all. Because I was from a very selfish industry.
Yeah.
And I needed to be the most selfless person I could be. So helping others, I think, is one of the most underestimated conversations
Yeah.
that we have.
Well, remember, we're social animals. We need each other. And when we do for others what we need, we learn all the lessons we need to learn. I did an experiment with a friend with this very, I have a friend who was like, when it rains, it pours. Her career was in the shitter. Her relationship, her marriage was on the rocks. Like, just nothing was going right. Like she just was so unhappy. Just nothing was going right. And she called me up. She knows what I do for a living. She calls me up and says, can you like coach me or something? I was like, sure. So every Wednesday we got together for 90 minutes and she told me what she was going through and I gave her some points of view and some advice. And she was fantastic for like 2 days, 3 days at the most. And then she'd go back to the malaise. And we get together the following week, repeat. She'd feel amazing for 2 or 3 days and then go back. And this was just for months. This went on like this rinse and repeat. She'd feel amazing. She'd be grateful. Oh my God, I love seeing you. 2 or 3 days, right back where we started. And I was like, this is not working, and so I remembered my own work and I remembered this example of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the way you solve your problems by helping other people solve the same problems. So I said to her one day when she came over and like, hey, listen, can we try something different? I also need counsel. I also need a point of view. I trust you. I've known you forever. I love you. You know everything about me. Like I feel the safest with you more than anybody else. Can I share some of the stuff that I'm dealing with so I can get your point of view? We'll do like half. And so that's what we started to do. And so the first time we tried it, I went first, except we talked about me for 90 minutes. And then we ran out of time. She's like, don't worry, but we'll get to me next week, And we got together next week and I started and we talked about me for 90 minutes. In like 3 or 4 weeks, she was on Clyde 9. She was done. She was perfect. Everything was fixed. And I knew what was happening. Like I was sharing genuine stuff with her. Like I didn't make it up. Like I genuinely needed the support. But I also knew that this was more likely to help because I remembered the service work. And it did.
Do you think that's because you're not then ruminating on your own problems constantly? You're actually thinking about somebody else. Your mindset is becoming shifted.
Your mind, you can make that which is emotional objective when it's not about you. Because, when we've all had our hearts broken and the first thing that goes through my mind is like, I'll never fall in love. Nobody loves me. I'm like, why does nothing go right for me? I'm a loser, But if somebody said that to you, I'll never find love. I'm a loser. Like literally you're going to look at them and be like, you're an idiot. You're fucking amazing. Okay, you had one relationship go south. Of course you're going to find love again. Like we can see it objectively in others, but we can't see it in ourselves. So I think it allows us a degree of objectivity to the point where we start sort of just like being able to internalize the advice that we're giving without even realizing it. And I think that we are able to take ourselves on in a way and to lie in bed and think about somebody else rather than lie in bed and think about yourself. You're more likely to get a good night's sleep with that.
But you also realize that everyone's imperfect.
Of course.
Everyone is going through something.
Well, speak for yourself.
And so you're imperfect, I'm imperfect, I'm definitely imperfect. But it's such a big thing because when we are in that victim mentality or when we're in like our own problems, it's all so consuming on us.
Yeah.
Yet when we're like, wait, Simon's really struggling on these areas, you actually forget that it's not just you struggling.
Yeah.
It's like part of self-compassion.
Sarah Kubrick, who I'm a big fan of, she's well known on the Instagram as the millennial therapist. She wrote a book. I can't remember the exact title, but basically it's the gist is the problem is you. Like it's not them, it's you. And then we live in a world of like, it's always them. You're the victim. They did this to you. Like that's kind of the world we live in right now. We're sort of, a blamey sort of victim-y world. And I love that this young millennial, therapist, that's what she is, Dr. Sarah Kubrick, basically says, no, it's the problem.
You.
It's you. The problem is you. And if you can accept that, you're off to the races, like in an argument. Like, so my favorite thing in an argument, and again, this is one of those things I've said out loud. Like, I love when we argue when there's pain and hurt and debate. Invariably, someone will say to the other, well, you started this. Well, if you hadn't have done this, we wouldn't be, And then we debate on who started it, right? And I've said this out loud. I'm like, look, we can debate who started this. I definitely think it was you. You definitely think it was me, okay? This is going to go nowhere. Here's one thing we can 100% agree on. One of us started it, 100%. And the other one definitely poured gasoline on the fire and made it worse. So whether I started it or made it worse, or whether you started or made it worse, we are where we are today because of us. Okay, so can we just agree the shitstorm that we're in, we both have some accountability. One started and one made it worse. All right, done. And I think that's part of finding solution, which is accepting that, because if you didn't make it worse, even if they started it, then you wouldn't be arguing, you know? You would know how to hold space for their difficult conversation. And maybe they aren't good at communicating and said their feelings in a mean way and made an accusation and were, you know, and were triggering to you because they haven't learned the skills of good communication. And instead of being like, oh, this person is struggling to communicate to me, but they're just hurt. Don't take it personally. They're just telling you. Instead, we punch them in the face, figuratively, of course. So
take responsibility is such a big thing,
like,
right?
like we, like, you know, it's all of these euphemisms, you know, it takes two to tango, you know, it's true.
It's true.
It's true. You know, yes, one of us might have started it, but I can guarantee the other one made whatever it was worse.
Amplified it.
And so if we can both accept that we're both accountable to some degree, it doesn't matter more or less, like we both contributed. Now maybe we can
move on.
And so again, if you want to study great friendships, study great relationships. Like all the stuff we're talking about is kind of like relationship stuff.
Everything you're saying, I'm kind of flipping between so many different types of relationships, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the core.
It's human interaction
aspect, exactly.
The difference between pretty much.
Do you think some of the best relationships are the best friendships?
Look, I definitely, there's a movement afoot that I subscribe to that we have for some reason lionized romantic relationships, that they are the most important kind of relationship, that if you don't have a good romantic relationship, you're worthless, and we should all aspire for long-term romantic relationships in whatever form they take, right? And I don't think that's true. I've not been successful in romantic relationships. And to the point where the women I've dated have accused me of having commitment issues, what's wrong with you, you know? And I start to believe it because empirically it would appear to be true. And I've come to realize that I just don't think I suffered from the same thing as most of our society, which is gotta get a romantic relationship, gotta make it work, right? And the reality is I don't think that's true. I have some friendships that are better relationships than some of the best romantic relationships some of my friends have. The love, the care, the time, the energy, the sacrifice, the safe spaces, the communication is so incredible. The only thing we don't do is have sex.
I was going to say intimacy, and that's something you can't get from a friend.
And sometimes you even have friends that you can do that.
Friends with benefits.
You know? So you can kind of live a very happy, brilliant, successful, fulfilled, unlonely, friendship-filled life. And if the romance happens, great. But I think that we need to, we've overplayed the importance of long-term romantic relationships, and we've underestimated the value of long-term intimate friendships. And when I say intimate, I don't mean sexual, although some may have that. I mean the ability to say I love you. And when I came to peace with that.
When did you come to peace with that?
Pretty recently. I took the pressure off myself that I have to have a successful romantic relationship. The irony being, it's probably more likely to be successful now, right? Because it's the pressure we apply to ourselves.
I think women feel that way more than men,
perhaps,
by the way.
I mean, say more.
I think there is, so I'll speak from personal experience. I think women have a biological clock, and I think if you want to have a child, there's such an intense pressure to meet someone. Now, if you let that go and you're like, actually, I don't care if I have children, and that doesn't bother me at all, then I think there's a lot more freedom. I have so many friends that feel that way, and they feel very liberated in the entire thing. I also think there's a huge social pressure for women to have everything done by a certain age, now more so than ever. Whereas I think kind of men don't have that. Men can kind of just keep going and go, well, you know, if I meet somebody in my late 40s and I decide to have a child, I can do that. A woman doesn't have that option.
So let me just have some fun here. Or maybe we are so lucky to live in this modern day that we can expand the definition of what it means of how we should have a family and how we can have a child. I know multiple women who got to the point where they realized, I'm not going to meet somebody who I want to marry. I'm going to do it myself. And they are very happy single mothers who rely on friends and family to raise this kid. They're not alone. I know people who had kids with their best friend where they don't want to get married and they love each other, but it's not that kind of relationship. But they decided, you wanted a kid, I wanted a kid. You know, I have a friend who came to me recently and asked me if I would be the father for her kid with no strings attached, which was an honor to be asked. But my point is that I think...
Can I ask what you said?
I thought about it for a while, and as I was so flattered, but I said no, because for many reasons. But I said no. And she wasn't mad at me. But I think we live in this magical time where what relationships look like and how to raise a family it's not 1950.
It's not, but I don't think we're still there yet.
I don't think
I agree with you.
I don't think we're there. And it takes.
But would you do that? Do you want children?
Do I want children? The answer is, I don't have an intense hankering to have children. If I fall in love with somebody so madly that we want that lifestyle, then sure. But I don't want to be with someone just to have children.
No, but I also think I don't think many people just want to be with someone to have a child.
Oh, I would beg to differ. I've dated a couple of them.
Okay. I think many women would like to have a child with someone that they are completely in love with.
Yeah. By the way, I would hope so.
Yeah. Then that's my perspective.
I mean, look, I think it sounds cold because we're talking about children and, you know, this biological need and this desire that someone has. The irony is, and you said it, which is, let me talk about it differently, right? So it doesn't sound as cold. I recently had the magical opportunity to go on safari in Kenya. And our first day out, I said to the guide, we're going to do this a little differently than you're probably used to doing it. I said, if you hear over the radio that somebody saw a rhino, I want you to drive in the opposite direction. I said, the experience I have no agenda. I said, I know everybody's supposed to see the big five. The problem with if you come in with an agenda, you come in with a checklist, that if I saw 4 out of the 5 and I just didn't see a lion, I would feel that this was a failure. I would feel like I missed something, that I didn't see something, even though I saw 4 out of the 5 big 5. I said, I don't want that feeling. I said, so my mindset is, I would rather be by myself, alone, in the vastness of the Masai Mara, than rushing with a pair of binoculars with 30 other trucks trying to see something in the distance to say I saw it. This is the experience I choose to have. Just please drive in the opposite direction every single time. Only one time we didn't, right? Only one time we're like, just go. But every other time, literally, everything was going that way. We went in the opposite direction. Everything. And I was at peace. I was at peace. We were all at peace. We made the decision together that we just wanted to hang out, and whatever we saw, we saw. And the experience we're going to have is magical no matter what. We ended up seeing a leopard up close, 2 cheetahs up close, a lion that walked right in front of our Range Rover or Land Rover, actually a Toyota, walked literally right in front of us by ourselves. We tracked it by ourselves. Ended up seeing a herd of over 100 elephant walk right past us with 20 babies. We saw a buffalo. There's only 35 rhino in the whole Masai Mara. We saw 3 of them, and one of them had a baby and walked right in front of our car. And we planned to see nothing. And we kept joking that the only reason we saw everything is because we were happy seeing nothing.
You weren't looking for it directly.
I wasn't looking for it directly. And I know it's easier said than done. I know, but it's so hackneyed. It's almost a punchline. Like when you talk to people who find the perfect person, they almost always say, I wasn't looking.
Oh, totally. Yeah, always.
It's like a punchline, right? And I think there is a sense of letting go and accepting that my life is good and I love my life, even if I don't get everything on the checklist. But if I live my life with a checklist, I'll always be disappointed. Like, I don't believe in bucket lists. Like, I live my life with a reverse bucket list. Like, people have a bucket list of all the things they want to do in a life. And if you check off 70% of that list, you will only see the last 30% of the things you didn't do. And you will think your life a disappointment. A reverse bucket list is there is no list. I just keep adding to the insane stuff that I've got to do, the people I've got to meet. I just keep adding to it. And every day I just feel richer and richer and richer. I feel like I'm missing nothing. And are there things I want to do that I'll probably never get to do? Of course. But are there things that I've done that I never even dreamed of doing that happened? Yes. So I know it's easier said than done. I cannot relate to the biological clock. I cannot relate. And I know what I'm saying.
I just had to put that in there because I feel like so many women are going to be screaming at this podcast.
Oh, the people are so mad at me right now. I've lost all my female followers. I understand what I'm saying is a very male, unbiological perspective.
No, but I do agree with the term of not having this perfect picture and this idealistic life that we all hope for. Like, I actually don't agree with that.
And trying to architect it.
Yeah, I don't believe in that either.
The picture is fine. The picture is fine. We all have pictures. To say we don't is nonsense, right? We all have pictures.
Well, I feel like when you do, you're let down.
But the attempt to try to architect it is the problem. There's a husband over in those woods. Quick, take the Land Rover over there. Ah, damn it, missed it. Try over there, quick, rush.
He's mating with someone else.
Ah, it's like, this is why, let's bring it all the way back to friendship, right? This is why I think investing in friendship is more valuable than that, because the number of people who, after 3 or 4 years of intense friendship, they look at each other and go, why aren't we dating? Like, we've gone through each other's breakups so many times. We're always there for each other. We love each other. We care about each other. Why aren't we dating? And the number of people I know who ended up marrying their best friend is pretty high.
That's pretty awesome, right?
And so investing in friendship has lower stakes because it's not on the image. It's not on the checklist. It's not on the fantasy. It's literally not on there, which is a different problem, right? And so the stakes are low. And so I think invest in friendship. Help your friends find love. Goes back to that service orientation. I have a friend, she's desperate to find a husband and have kids. I'm going to help her. Why don't we do that?
It's a different purpose as well,
It's a different
right?
purpose. And I think perhaps, just perhaps, if we change strategy, and you have to tell me I'm full of shit or not, because again, biology and hormones, I can't,
I think it depends. I think I agree, but I also believe that if something is inherently important to someone, so if a woman's listening to this and she's thinking, well, I'd love to have a child. Yeah. It can be really hard to let that go. And now I do think we've got so much more autonomy.
I didn't say let it go. I said change strategy. Change strategy.
Change strategy, but you also have to be comfortable with the concept of letting it go.
That it would be okay.
Yeah, you have to be comfortable with that.
I think that's true.
It's really important.
That would be okay. I can be disappointed, but I can go through the acceptance that if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Mm-hmm. But my goal is to live a happy life despite that. Mm-hmm. I think that's fair, right?
I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. I think we have more autonomy now than we ever did. So I think we can do a lot more.
We can edit out all the stuff that I said that people get mad at.
No, they won't. I had to put that in as a woman. But fine. It leads me to my last question, which where you are now, where inherently friendships are so important to you, you're writing about it, you're researching about it, it's become an obsession, like you said. And you've let go of this idea that everything falls on just a romantic partner. What does live well, be well mean to you?
I think in the context of this conversation anyway, live well has to be in service. That you can't be well until you help others live well. I think for me anyway, to wake up every day and worry about how I'm living or I'm being seems self-defeating. But to wake up every day and say, how can I help somebody else live well? And what I'll discover is that I will physically be well, emotionally be well, spiritually be well, when others feel like that their lives are better because I'm in them. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you,
Thank
Simon,
you.
for coming on.
What a lovely conversation.
It was.
Thank you.
Friendships.
Friendships. Here's to friendship.
Here's to friendship. Thank you.